Someone who has a personal stake in all of this is George Smitherman. He's a former Deputy Premier of Ontario and Health Minister who served in the Liberal government of Premier Dalton McGuinty. He left provincial politics to run for Mayor of Toronto in 2010, but lost to Rob Ford, the Premier's late brother. After a break from politics, George Smitherman is now running for a seat on City Council, and he joins me now live. George, welcome to you.
Nice to see you, Carol.
Can't get away from politics, can you?
I really miss it. I really miss the people of politics.
I want to talk to you about a couple of things tonight. One very political, one intensely personal, but I want to begin with the political. What's your reaction to the judge's decision that cutting City Council from 47 to 25 members is a violation of the Constitution?
Well, you know, I'm someone that's in politics from a young age because of Pierre Trudeau, and as a gay person, I've celebrated the Charter of Rights and Freedoms frequently. And so at 8:05 this morning, I was giving kudos to Pierre Trudeau on another channel. And by later today, the Notwithstanding Clause, not the best feature of the repatriation of the Constitution, was dinner time conversation as I tried to explain to my husband, newly arrived from Cuba, and to our two small children, how Doug Ford could use a thing called a Notwithstanding Clause to fight back against a judge's ruling. So a remarkable day, and I spent my life in politics.
Yeah, how did you explain it?
I explained it like the big king gets to overrule everybody else if he really wants to. But when they made the rule, the big king said that they wouldn't do it so often, or something to that effect. I mean, it just, when I first saw it suggested on Twitter that he had a big bombshell coming, first at 12 and then later at 2, I thought immediately, oh my goodness gracious, this man is unhinged. And his willingness to use a method like this to trump democracy in Toronto it's stunning.
Are you using the word Trump on purpose?
The parallels, I'm sorry, some people say there aren't parallels. I think we saw today in his remarks that he is prepared to say anything, and veracity is no longer an issue, and that's a lot of similarity with Trump. I think the one difference is Trump doesn't have to run the legislative side of things, and this guy does, and I think he's slow to figure it out.
Where today do you think that our Premier was not truthful?
Well, the Premier was not truthful as an example in suggesting that the judge was appointed by Dalton McGuinty. I mean, that was just fodder for his crew, and I'll bet you if I look on Twitter, I can see a whole bunch of people repeating that. So that's just one example, and I think worse yet is seemingly his fundamental understanding of the law, of constitutional law, and of the idea that even though we may be democratically elected, it still means that our laws have to be in compliance with the Constitution of the land.
Here's what I think you're referring to. Hold that thought for a second, and I'll let the audience take a listen to what Premier Ford said today about how Ontario will respond to this court ruling. Take a listen.
And I respect the courts. And the courts use every tool in their toolbox to make this happen. Well, guess what? I'm going to use every tool at our disposal to make sure we hold up the Constitution and the democratic right of the people of Ontario.
George Smitherman, your reaction to that?
Well, I think people can figure out for themselves. You could hear in his voice how excited he was to be going nuclear. I mean, it's just like the conversation that you saw the other day that people had to talk Donald Trump out of a preemptive strike on North Korea. And no one could talk this guy out of it and say, save that for another day. Keep your powder dry. You can still do this. You'll just have to wait a short while. I've met so many conservative people that support a move to 25 wards, but just really don't understand why that becomes the government's most urgent priority. It's in that sense, I think, quite shocking.
Ontario legislature being called back to emergency session on Wednesday to debate and vote whether to use Section 33, the Notwithstanding Clause. What do you think will happen?
Well, I went up there to see if there's anyone amongst the conservative backbench that has a backbone. He's given them a chance to have a free vote. I sent out an offer on Twitter for any MPP of any party that wants to come and wander around the territory of Toronto Centre, 110,000 people large, and just check out what municipal politics looks like in a territory that populous and that diverse. But at the end of the day, I have no doubt whatsoever that the trained SEALs in his caucus are going to follow him forward. They're taking an extraordinary delight in the punishment of Toronto. They like it. You can see it in their body language.
Okay, you're still planning to run for council. How do these changes affect you?
They affect me in a big way insofar as I was imagining to run in a part of Toronto Centre that was a few neighborhoods, and that expands exponentially, and also puts people in a position where they'll be running against folks that they might have otherwise not preferred to do so. Worst is, it makes the job rather untenable, and I said to my husband, I'm going to fight hard to win, but, you know, this is nighttime work personified, and the volume of work that goes with meeting the expectations of local citizens to see their politician, to deal with the pothole, so to speak, or what have you, it's real. I was a provincial politician. I tried hard to be active at the community level, but I was outpaced regularly by city councillors. And it's going to be very, very difficult to fulfill the needs and expectations of local communities in Mr. Ford's imposed model.